This episode is made possible by Badlands Pets. As you all know, Mojo, my precious baby, is the reason why I found love in the first place. He made me feel love again. So I would do anything to ensure his health and longevity. And actress Katherine Heigl and I have that in common. She's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to improve any dog's health, and that's their food. So fortunately, she found that just by adding a few special superfoods to her dog's food, she saw huge transformations in their health. So she's made a 20-minute video explaining step by step how anyone can do the same thing to see incredible changes in their dog's health. I've definitely re-looked at what I'm feeding Mojo and making sure that, hey, he only has one life to live, and I want to make sure it's the best damn life. So if you want to keep your dog healthy and happy, go to badlandsfood.com/dateable and watch Catherine's video right now. Again, that's badlandsfood.com/dateable.
I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine.
The Dateable podcast features real stories from real people of how they make modern dating work, or not. I'm your host, Yue, former dating coach turned dating insider, if you will. On each episode, you'll hear commentary from my producer, Julie Kraftchick, and other surprise co-hosts. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the friend zone. We actually had an episode about the friend zone a while ago and how this couple came out of the friend zone and now they're married. But today we have our guest Bobby on the show, who is sort of notorious for always being friend zoned.
A little bit friend zoning, or sometimes doing the friend zoning at times too. So
Okay.
A little bit of both ways.
So Bobby is our expert friend zoner. He is 30 years old from New Hampshire. He's been in San Francisco for 4 years and currently on a dating sabbatical. Okay. From what we've known about Bobby, he is a self-proclaimed nice guy and seems to often fall into the friend zone. He's been called over to carry boxes up the stairs and even fix a sink faucet and helped assemble a bed frame. What are you, IKEA? Like, what is this? Task rabbit.
Just an all-around handy guy.
He stayed friends with many of the girls he's met on dating apps and is even now friends with their current boyfriends. This is just blowing my mind. How does that transition even happen? You go on a few dates and then how do you become friends?
Well, I think initially, I'm not too presumptuous to first go out on a date with them. I think I start more from a friendly side of things. When I first moved here, I suppose I was just looking for friends. I'm not too overly aggressive. So I kind of set the bar low and see if we can be friends first, even if there is an attraction.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad approach. I mean, the basis of any good relationship is a friendship. So it actually makes dating more enjoyable if you go out thinking you want to be friends first and have that develop. But my question is, how does that just stay in the friend zone and it doesn't develop? What do you think it is happening that's not taking these friendships to the next level?
Probably a sense of urgency. I mentioned briefly how I was just looking for friends with the potential of something growing from there. And I matched with this one woman, and we weren't initially very flirtatious whatsoever. There's just good chemistry. We had similar interests in photography and some in design, and just had good banter. So there wasn't necessarily flirtation out of that, and there was a bit of stagnation where we just didn't meet up right away. At the time, I was living in South Bay for a short while. Wasn't sure if I was going to be coming back to San Francisco. Finally did, and I just decided like I was more interested in being friends potentially than having something work out, and I valued that a bit more, I suppose.
Okay, so then I'm confused. Are we talking about friend zone in the sense that you want to find ways to get out of the friend zone, or are you here to tell us about why friend zone is actually not a bad place to be?
I think friend zone's not a bad place to be if that's something that you're comfortable with, and if you set those expectations from the start. It's definitely not an ideal place to be if you are looking for something more substantial.
What are you looking for?
Back then, I think I was looking for more continual dating, seeing if something could go somewhere. But one thing that was really discouraging was that you feel like you don't really get a chance to kind of like launch your feathers, if you will, because you might go on one date and then right away it's like no interest after that. But then they might want to be friends still.
So I guess like now when you're friends and they have significant others, like do you feel anything towards these people, or are you just kind of like cool with it?
Personally, in this circumstance, the woman I mentioned, that was a couple years ago, so that's totally passed by at this time. And yeah, you're right. Like, I am friends with their significant other, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
And they don't think it's weird that like they met you on a dating app? Like
I don't believe so. Like, especially in San Francisco, of all places.
So are you on dating apps now for friends?
No.
Well,
No.
we've talked about this on past episodes. Like when you move to a new city, sometimes that's like a red flag for someone that's looking for something super serious, because people are kind of using dating apps the way you described, just to meet more people and maybe even prioritize friendship over dating, or just something to even do and somewhere to go on a Friday night.
Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. And
So I guess I'm still confused about what you're looking for.
good question. Personally, I'm not really looking for a super serious relationship at this point. I think that's one thing, if I had to like self-reflect on that, I felt like I was looking for something for quite a while and just not really finding anything. Maybe somewhat of like a Band-Aid scenario where I was just bored or
So right
kinda
now
ambivalent.
you're not in a place to be in a relationship. You don't want anything serious. So then what are you looking for then? I'm going to keep asking that.
If I were to be looking on a dating site, I would probably be looking for friends and hopefully set that expectation up front.
So why go to dating sites to find friends?
Yeah.
I think it's the accessibility. Considering in San Francisco or the Bay Area when I first moved here, it was a little difficult to like organically meet people.
But that was 4 years ago. So what about now? 4 years later, you're in San Francisco, you're established. Why still go on dating apps for friends?
Well, so I guess I was trying to allude to earlier was the fact that maybe I was like looking for something and that wasn't essentially what I should have been looking for. I wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
And over the past maybe 6 months or so, kind of had the realization where, I'm kind of looking in the wrong places as something, maybe a relationship to fix some of the problems.
So what made you want to go on a dating sabbatical? What caused that?
I was just like exhausted, to be honest. It just kind of felt like a dead end. Felt a little disposable.
So what I'm hearing from you is at this point, you're on a dating sabbatical because you experienced dating fatigue.
Correct.
For you to experience dating fatigue, you must have had issues when you were dating at the time. So let's go back to that. What were the dating issues you were facing? Was it the feeling you said you felt disposable? Is that feeling disposable, does that come from being friend zoned with girls who, you go on a few dates with, and then you end up being friends with their boyfriend, and you do like carry their boxes and fix their faucets? Is that the root of the dating fatigue?
A bit of it, yeah. So the dating fatigue just comes from searching to like try to match with someone, and then you finally go out on a date with them, you get in friend zone, and then it's just like a roundabout where you just keep going around the circle. Also, maybe the reason why I'm on a sabbatical now too is I'm just personally trying to work on myself. full transparency, yeah, I was trying to maybe like use dating as like band-aids. You know, you get like a mild high off of it where it's like, oh, you
Of
get like
course,
a
yeah.
you get a match, great.
Yeah.
You have this kind of like hopeful outlook and what have you. And like I was just like tired of that roller coaster.
Yeah.
And just moved out onto like my own apartment, kind of have my own space now. And I just needed to start doing things for myself again.
Okay.
But you know what? This is great having this conversation with you, because sometimes you have to talk it out loud, you know, because right now you're like, what is my situation right now? Well, your situation right now is a consequence of what you experience in dating. And the consequence of what you experience in dating is you being like, I'm not ready for a relationship or anything serious. But let's go back to the root of the problem, which is you were experiencing dating fatigue. What I'm sensing from you is that there's a lack of focus. Like if we went on a date together and this is how we were talking, I'd be like, I'm really not sure why you're on dating apps. I'd be like, why are we here?
Right.
Are you just looking for friends? If you are, then, you know, like I'm not looking for friends.
Right, because I'm on a dating app.
I'm on a dating app. Right. So to me, it's almost like you have to be more focused and targeted in what you're looking for before you go out dating again.
So would you like go out for drinks with these girls and like pay? Like how did that work?
Yeah, certainly. So if we were to go out for drinks or coffee, dinner, what have you, you know, I'd definitely make the gesture to pay. One thing I have found a lot in San Francisco is that, you know, a lot of like the women here, they don't want you to pay necessarily.
So the way you're speaking also is from what the women want. But you have to think about, what do you want? What are your values? If your values are, I want to treat a girl to drinks, that's your value.
Right.
If she doesn't accept it, that's her problem. But you have to be more solid and strong in what you value in dating.
More conviction.
Exactly.
And like in my own rather than catering.
And I have the sense, and like Julie and I talked about this earlier, I was telling her about my friend in LA. He's in a very similar situation where he gets friend zoned quite a bit and he's experiencing dating fatigue and taking a dating sabbatical. The root of his problem is that he has never outright said, I like you, or I want to take you on another date, or I want to take this to the next level. He ends up going on dates and then lets the girls talk about their dating problems and the guys that they're seeing.
Yep.
And then as soon as you let a girl do that, she already sees you as a friend. So then she's going to be like, great, I can keep talking to Bobby about my dating problems.
And then sometimes too, just to bring on the point of paying, I know there's a lot of mixed things, but a lot of times when women, it sounds counterintuitive, but a lot of times when women are feeling like this is just a friend, they don't want them to pay because they don't want to like owe someone something.
Right.
So if that vibe is already being put out there, that could explain why women are actually being more forward about paying.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that's like a consequence of what you're putting out there. I think my whole point is, what I'm sensing from you, Bobby, is that you're putting up a defense mechanism here where you're saying, I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm working on myself, which is great. But at the same time, I feel like deep down you are looking for something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to our podcast and we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
This podcast is so entertaining.
Well, thank you. But I guess like the girl that you built her bed, like what did you feel about that? Like after that happened? Like
I mean, it was kind of felt like, to be honest, like a bait and switch scenario.
Yeah.
Where like we had stopped like dating for a couple months, but then they just asked if I could help like hammer something in. But then when I get there, it's like a full on bed assembly.
But why does she ask you and not a TaskRabbit?
It's a great question.
because she knew you would do it.
Yeah,
That's why.
That's the problem. You know, like the more you give and you get nothing back, and I'm not saying it's tit for tat. This world isn't about I give you something, you give me something back. But if there were no signs of her respecting you any more than you building her bed, then why even bother?
To be honest, like I have a maybe root problem of like not wanting to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And so that's like a definite problem.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think the big thing is like growing up, I always had like a good amount of friends, like all in different circles. Though I never really had like any super close friends. And you know, you kind of wanted to hang on to the ones that you had. And so it's like even now I have circles of friends in different areas, but no like super, super close best friends.
So when you meet someone like the girl that you mentioned with photography and you have like this connection, you want to hold on to it.
Correct.
I actually want to know, so the girl that you carry the boxes,
Oh, yeah.
do you still talk to her?
No, not her.
What about the one you assembled the bed frame?
Oh, yeah.
You still talk to her? Are you guys
Yeah.
friends?
Yeah, we're just friends now.
You're just friends. Is she?
Certainly.
Does she have a boyfriend?
Yeah, interesting story about that. So, like, while, when I helped her set up the bed,
Yeah.
we weren't dating in any regards, or it was a long time ago. But while I was helping her with that, she told me that she was, like, dating someone now. I'm like, why isn't he?
Okay, that
Well,
is
that
interesting
is
because
fucked up.
Apparently, he was, like, injured or something like that.
Okay, I need to know. Do you guys still talk? You guys still
Intermittently.
like
Like, we don't reach out to
text?
one another necessarily. Like, it might be like, hey, what's up? Or
but why
Instagram.
why even keep that in your life? Like what benefit are you getting
We
from
share like similar hobbies. Like I'm pretty into rock climbing out here.
So
And
are like
a lot of
6,000
people.
other
Yeah.
people.
that? So you're looking for it feels like you're
Kidding.
looking for activity partners. Is that fair?
Well, we don't climb necessarily together, but it's just like having good rapport. I have a difficult time like burning bridges or cutting the cord.
Like, I want to know who's the core of who Bobby is. There's got to be more to you than being a nice guy, being someone who's a people pleaser, being someone who's a great friend. I'm sure you're always there for your friends. But do you ask for help?
No, not really.
Why? Why is that?
To be honest, maybe I pride myself on being somewhat self-sufficient. I've noticed more and more like just really independent.
Mhm.
I go mountain biking by myself Friday, Saturday, and I don't really have that urge to like always have someone there.
There's a difference between being a loner and being independent. When you're
Yeah,
you're a
that's
loner, you get so in your head about things. And your mind is always churning. You're always
I'm super analyzer.
you become I hate using this word, but you become a molester of your own thoughts. You start just molesting your thoughts over and over
you can
again.
manipulate it and think about different scenarios, like what if I did this? What if I had done that?
And it
Yep.
becomes perverse in some ways because you're just stuck in your own head. That's a loner. But when you're independent, it just means that you are fine being on your own.
Yeah.
But you also are open to other challenges and opinions and perspectives. I feel like what you really need right now, and I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but I sense could really help is to get you out of your comfort zone. Something that just pushes you to be totally uncomfortable. And I actually get the sense that this is a little uncomfortable for you.
Certainly.
And that's awesome. And that's awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a question for you. Like there's definitely people that just enjoy being single and that's what they want and that's totally awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But like we said before, we're not fully sure where you're falling from this conversation. When you're like having alone time, like do you think about women? Do you think about dating? Or is that just not even on your mind?
I'm like not thinking about dating, no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, growing up, I was definitely more of like a romantic in a sense where I would think about like, all I want one day is, have someone to love, this, that, the other.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have noticed is like as I've gotten older, kind of valued my alone time a lot more and just haven't felt the need that like I need someone here to share it. Now, when I do go places and like hiking and whatnot, I'd be like, oh, this would be a rad spot to like share this with.
Maybe not now is a bad example,
Not
but
now,
when you
no.
were dating, like were you like thinking about the people you had been on dates with, or was it just kind of like
Certainly, yeah. Like kind of like as you established was that like I was like inside my own head all the time.
okay,
And
but I
so-
guess what I'm trying to understand is it inside your own head with relationships and dating, or inside your own head with whatever
at the
else?
time, like when I was dating, yes, like inside my own head with relationships, thinking like, oh, like what's it like why? Well, not necessarily why haven't they responded, but like I wonder what they're doing. Like why don't they want to hang out? Or
It's always about them, right? Like, why isn't she wanting to do this? Or why
Right.
isn't she interested? But did you ever question, what is it that I want? What do I like about her? What do I want out of this relationship or friendship?
Mhm.
I think that's what needs to drive these dates. We see it all the time. Like someone comes back from a date, oh, I hope you really liked me. Or I
Yeah.
hope she found me attractive. But it's not, dating is a two-way street. You also have to evaluate, do I want to be with this person.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
I agree. And one thing that I definitely pick up on, like when I did go on all those dates, was like how well someone could articulate, even though I might be having a tough time right now. If someone can speak with conviction and kind of really be introspective, have the ability to like talk about the things they like, what they're interested in, not just say that they, like cars or
They need substance, right?
Exactly.
But
So,
you
like,
also have to be the same. You got to give it back to them, right?
oh, certainly. Yeah.
So I have a question for you. When I was asking you what you think about with in the past with these dates, and one of the things you said was, why aren't they responding, or what are they doing right now? All these questions about them. Like, what moves do you make to show them that you're interested, that you wanted to maybe do more?
That's definitely a big shortcoming of mine. I'll admit that for sure. Like not acting with enough conviction in the sense of being like, I like you, or I'm interested, like severe or not severely, but like I'm want to go to this next level or what have you. I think it's something that I've like drawn out in most cases. You could give it two answers. It could be like for fear of the potential rejection,
Right.
or also the ability to like cultivate some sort of like bond, if you will. I have a tough time kind of jumping into like, intimacy like right away, like just conversation or emotionally, that is. And to feel comfortable to do that. And if you want to like dive deeper, that's probably has to do with childhood, like upbringing and stuff like
of
that.
course.
My parents weren't very like, or they didn't divorce or anything of that nature, but kind of like affection, closeness, stuff like that just never was kind of there.
I get it. Yeah.
And so it's not something I'm necessarily, like, I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I'm familiar with.
Or that you can jump into.
Correct.
So I would say two things. One is these aren't shortcomings. So take that out of your vocabulary. These are opportunities for improvement, right? We all have opportunities for improvement here. It's not a shortcoming. A shortcoming is something that cannot be done anymore.
Okay.
But this is just an opportunity for improvement. The second thing I would say is what I sense from you is that the way modern dating works doesn't exactly fit your personality. You seem like a guy who needs time. You need more face time with someone. You need feelings to develop, especially when it comes to intimacy. You also need the girl to give you an opportunity to peel back the layers and show her who you are. And those things cannot be done the first 3 dates or 5 dates or even like a month. But when you meet these girls on a dating app, the expectation is it's for dating, right? Your strategy that works for you should be going from friend zone to relationship zone. But that doesn't work from dating apps.
And I think
That's
what's
fair.
probably happening, I'm just thinking of if I was in the shoes of someone that's on a date with you, I would get the vibe that you weren't interested, that you also just like weren't down.
Ambivalent.
Right, or ambivalent.
Jinx.
I think, ambivalent is the key word. So I would lose interest. And then if you were like, just wanted to be friends, like, I guess it depends on my own personal need, if I needed friends or didn't.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, oh, okay, like, this makes sense. He wasn't interested in anything more. But I might have been interested in more.
Exactly. You know how many of our girlfriends have come back from dates or like have dated guys for a while? And one, they're like, I don't know where this is headed. I don't know if we're friends or we're more. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And then two, they're like, if he just said something, I would be on board.
Yep.
If he had just made a move, I would have been on board. We hear it all the time.
Well, that was like the date I went on when I was here, remember?
Yeah.
And I went on this date, and it was probably the shortest date I've ever had in my life. It was like under an hour, like 30 minutes, if even. And I came back here because I left my bag here. And our guests were still here. It was that short.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, that's a short date. Didn't go well. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think the guy was like interested. And then I got a follow-up text that was like, I had such a great time. And I was like, really? Because that was not the vibe that I got at all. And he, like, we basically had a conversation. He was like, oh, like, I thought like I just like made it clear I couldn't stay long. And I was really interested.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I didn't have that conversation with him, I would have just walked away thinking he wasn't interested.
Yeah, definitely. You have to make your feelings known. And it's not like some epic confession of being like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with you. It's more like, hey, I like you. I want to see you again. But I want to take you on another date. Date.
Yeah. But that guy following up with me.
Not hang out.
But I mean, honestly, that guy following up even via text. At least it showed me that he was interested.
Yeah.
If he didn't do that, I don't know. How do you do you ever tell people like I had a great time, I want to see you again? Like how do you like leave it?
Certainly, like I'll follow up. and say like, oh, had a great time,
Mhm.
let's go out again. I might not always make the conviction of like, let's like go on another date.
Mhm.
It really depends on how the conversation started from the beginning. Whether it's like, hey, let's like hang out, which might be like a walk at Fort Funston, something
Right.
like that,
Right.
which is less
Pretty
date.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will admit, like, I do tend to set the initial meets as more casual.
There's nothing wrong with casual dates, but people need to know that this is for romantic reasons, right? So Julie and I go on walks all the time.
What do you mean they're not romantic?
Oh, I'm sorry. You never say anything to me. But it's not so much what you're doing on the date, it's the context that you put it in. So if you put in the context of, I want this to be a date, I want this to be romantic, then the girl would think twice about accepting the date, right?
Certainly.
You also need... Come build my furniture.
Sorry, I gotta go.
But the fact that I think you are on this journey right now of self-reflection is already a really big step, because I think you already recognize some of these opportunities for improvement and how you can work on them. One, I don't think dating apps are, you should still get back on the dating apps when you're ready to date again, but they're not the best for you, because you need something.
I need something more, not long-term necessarily, but
repetitive.
Repetitive.
Like
FaceTime.
once a week. Yeah.
Somewhere that the women are also more open, like it's more ambiguous for women too. Like if there's this thing, again, I always point to this example, but I'm not like the athlete that wakes up at 6 a.m. and maybe not everyone is, but I think it's great if you are. And it actually sounds like you might be into this type of stuff. But anyways, like there's like November projects.
Yeah.
But I think the girls that go and the women that go, they're going to run. They're going to socialize.
Right. And I don't want to impede on that necessarily.
Yeah, but I guess that's my point, though.
It's the community.
It's not impeding, because things can just naturally progress. I know a lot of people that have met significant others that way.
Yeah.
But if you go on a dating app and then it doesn't go anywhere, it's like there's a weird... Because your expectation is date, you need to be somewhere where the women's expectation isn't necessarily date either.
Agreed. And that was like, I think one of my major gripes with dating apps, even though it should be known in the name that it is a dating app, but it sets the framework up as dating right there.
Yep, it's romance.
Rather than kind of getting to know.
Yeah.
Yep. So another question for you, because you mentioned on the phone that you don't really like going to bars. You prefer coffee or lunch because it's presumptuous.
I might have used that word a bit too liberally.
Okay.
But I think one thing that really struck out when you guys said like it's less casual. I'm definitely super outdoorsy, and so I'd rather do something like that. Hopefully, I'd match with someone similar, and so it kind of sets the bar lower as less datey. So then I can kind of get to know the person. And then after that initial casual encounter, then we could potentially set the framework up for like a true date.
And that doesn't work on dating apps.
Apparently. Yeah.
Because on dating apps, you expect to go on a true date right away.
So what were some of like the last places that you've taken women?
It's time to take a quick break so we can tell you about the latest service we have been building over here at DATEABLE. We've created a platform to connect you with vetted experts from our network to help with everything from coaching with dating, therapy, dating profile reviews, and even ways to get real feedback about your dating style. The sessions typically run from 30 minutes to an hour and can all be done via Skype or Google Hangouts, so you can be anywhere. Listeners have been sharing how worthwhile their sessions have been, with comments about how easy the coaches are to talk to, how they have provided a new perspective, and how they have created actionable ways to inspire change. To meet the coaches and book your session today, visit dateablepodcast.com/coaching. Now back to the show.
So what were some of like the last places that you've taken women?
First dates or?
Yeah, first dates.
Definitely Fort Funston. A lot of dogs there. Love dogs.
Okay.
Because I don't know about you, I've done the coffee date before, and I feel like it's really hard to have a connection there. That's not friendly. Because it just the environment doesn't really draw for that.
Doesn't cater to it. Plus, it might be like quick.
Yeah.
So like, I think I've done this before, where it's like you grab a coffee, but then like go on a walk. along like Embarcadero
But
or
even
something.
to me, that doesn't feel date-ish. I don't know. Maybe I'm
That's
alone
fair.
in that. I don't know what you think, Yue, but it just feels like just
From a dating app, I would not like that at all.
No.
From a dating app, I would expect
at least a drink.
at least drinks.
Why drinks?
Because to me, it's more intimate to do drinks. It doesn't mean it needs to be alcoholic.
Right,
It just
right.
means it's in a darker environment at
Yep.
night. That, to me, it signals that it's more intimate.
So I'm not going to like tap you on the leg at a coffee place, right?
Yeah.
'Cause that's weird.
The
But in a
environment's
bar,
not
if we're
right.
like sitting right next to each other at stools and we were like laughing and
Yeah.
joking and like it
There's more
calls
potential
for that.
For the girl that you want, I think you are probably attracted to pretty strong women who drive the situation, drive the conversation. But those women would crush you. And the minute they meet you, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to crush this guy. That's how that dichotomy really exists. And so if you take these strong women in a casual environment, they're already being like, oh my gosh.
Is that
like,
true? Do you feel like the women you go for tend to be stronger?
Definitely more of an attraction towards that. I can sense
more
that.
assertive women?
Certainly, yeah, and you're not wrong. I'm not the most assertive person out there.
But I think assertive women, yes, they like to set the agenda, but they also like to have someone that does that too. I think like if assertive, I don't want to speak for all assertive women, but going on like a walk is just not going to like.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's the first thing, like meeting. I guess with, like you alluded to, with dating apps, from the get-go, some people do expect to go on that date right away. And I suppose I don't align with that. So it's a bit more casual in my kind of repertoire.
So here's something you might want to try, because there are certain norms that are set with modern dating and dating apps where you just assume your first date is a very datey kind of thing. But if you preface the date by saying, I want to ask you out, I want to meet you, but this is how I like to move things forward.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer a casual meeting at first. And it might be more casual than what you're used to, but it's just a way I feel like things have worked for me. I think if you explain to
Set
people,
expectations.
yes,
Right.
versus just being like, let's go on a walk. I've turned down many walks,
Right.
Because I'm like, I'd rather go on a
Right.
walk with my dog,
That's fair.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it like, I keep pulling this example of like that really short date I had, but if like the guy like had said up front, like actually like my first time meeting people, like sometimes I like to keep it shorter just because of past experience or whatever.
Then it'd be
at least-
understandable.
yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, it was a short date. Didn't necessarily mean it was a bad date.
Yeah,
Okay.
set
But
the
just getting the
expectations.
short date, you're like, whoa, it did not go well.
Yes,
fair, yeah.
yes.
Okay, so
Fair.
what are some of our takeaways from this whole conversation?
I think, like what Yue mentioned, at least takeaway I'm going to take away is set expectations, have a better idea of the framework, and, maybe I was trying to make something work that doesn't work for me. As you alluded to, like online dating is very kind of straightforward, black and white. I see lots of gray in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, the biggest one for you, Bobby, is to figure out what your values are, what you look for in a partner, and stick to those values when you go back to dating.
Mhm.
That way, it'll help you evaluate if the dates are going well,
Certainly.
if that person could be a potential partner for you, and if it will help you, it'll help motivate you to drive that relationship to the next level if
Right.
you do see a fit with your values.
right, it'll make things a bit more clear too.
I
So
think-
like when you do have those qualities you're looking for, but you can definitely like see the personality in someone. So if I were to say like what I was looking for in that type of scenario,
Yeah.
someone that's kind of low key, but then like isn't really like fancy, ritzy, this, that, the other. Can't think
So
of anything.
again, those are descriptors of who someone is, and it doesn't describe their values. So go back to like someone who's low key. What do they value? They value quality time at home with their partner. That's a value.
Okay.
They value deep connections versus a wide social network. That's a value. They value nature and being outside. That's a value. So I think all the qualities that you are looking for in a partner, go back and think about where does that come from? Where is that core value?
Mhm.
Because it has to align with what you want as well.
That's fair.
But I think also to piggyback off that, you should maybe even think about what you are looking for long term, because we've heard a lot of mixed. And I think it's totally cool if you are just like, I don't really want a relationship. I don't want that partner. But I think where I challenge it is, am I saying that because I'm scared of being rejected and I'm scared of being hurt? Or is that truly what I want? Do I truly just love being by myself and not necessarily sharing a life and deep conversations and feelings with someone else?
The other takeaway is know the difference between being a loner versus being independent.
Yep.
I think that's a huge one for
That's
a lot
fair.
of people,
Yeah.
especially in the city, because everyone's very independent and they sort of qualify everything with that. It's like, I do this because I'm very independent. I feel this way because I'm very independent. Well, we get it. Okay, everyone's fucking independent. The thing is, the difference between being a loner and independent is that if you're a loner, on any given night, you prefer to be alone. If you're independent on any given night, you're fine being alone, but you prefer to share with someone else. There's a difference there. If you're
see that, yeah.
independent, you don't need anybody else.
Right.
There's no need for it. But if you're a loner, you actually prefer to not have anybody else.
Right.
That's a difference. And what I see with a lot of people in San Francisco, especially my first month when I moved here 3 years ago, I think I talked about this. I was at Stern Grove and I got an Uber with someone. And he was like, let me give you a ride, back because all the Ubers are taken. I'm like, okay. And in the car, he said to me, we were talking about dating, and he's like, I've given up on dating. I prefer to be alone, with my roommates and hang out with my bros. And I prefer that on any given night. And I was like, oh my God, this guy has given up on love. He literally has given up.
Yep.
So I think you don't want to get there, Bobby.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to the point where
Teetering.
you're like,
No.
yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people are. Before you fall off that cliff, let us hold you back and say, Bobby, you're not there. You don't need to get there, because I think deep down you do want a meaningful connection with someone in some capacity.
In some capacity, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another takeaway in general to maybe people on the receiving end, and also maybe to you also, Bobby, but like people are on these dating apps for many, many different reasons.
Yes.
So it is important to make sure that whoever you're dating is meshed with you, because like if someone's looking for friends and you're looking for a really long-term relationship, like that's just
It's not
set
gonna
up.
work out.
It's just a waste of everyone's time.
That's
For
fair.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, any other takeaways before we end? Okay.
Question of the day?
So we have a question of the day, and I like this one because it's basically the polar opposite of what we've been talking about. So be curious on everyone's opinion. So this question comes from Darian. I recently met this girl and I'm just crazy about her. We've been dating for 2 weeks and I can't stop thinking about her. I've been very forward about how I feel, and at first she seemed really into this, but she recently has become a bit more distant when I told her I think she is the one and I'm falling in love with her.
Ooh.
How should I proceed so I do not lose her?
Ooh.
Wow.
So this is basically the opposite of
Yeah.
moving
Putting
super
all the cards
fast.
out there.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I mean, good for you to do that. No, gosh, that's a tough one.
Typical case of two people not on the same page.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times
Different pace.
we think the relationship is going a certain way, but we don't communicate it. So even though he says, he was crazy about her, everything is like she seemed to really be into it, and I seemed to be really into her. But until things were verbalized, that's when things
There
changed.
wasn't really any confirmation. It was just assumptions.
A lot of
potentially.
assumptions. So I think it just comes from the lack of communication.
Mhm.
They're definitely on different pages. And how you feel about someone, the intensity is so relative to your own experience.
Mhm.
Like if you've never been in a relationship and then you fall in love, that is very
Yeah.
intense. But if you've been in relationships before, then you fall in love, maybe it's not as intense.
Right.
So what you think might be, oh my gosh, she is the one, I'm falling for her. It may just take her a little time to catch up to that. Or she may not be feeling the same way. So you can't assume how you're feeling is
Right.
exactly
Yeah.
how the other
cadence,
person's feeling.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a middle ground. Like we've said, maybe it is really nice, especially if you like someone, to hear that they also like
Yeah.
you.
Put it out there.
And I think maybe it sounded like at the beginning she was kind of, at least was on the same page and reciprocal. And then after he said, I think you're the one, and falling in love, that's when things started to take a turn.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just too soon, too fast, and it almost didn't feel genuine
Yeah.
because it was so soon. If it's only been like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's
2
really
weeks
fast.
but you know what? Everyone's on a different time.
That's fair.
It
Like,
could,
for me-
it totally
Everyone
could
is.
happen.
Yep.
For me, that's, crazy. But
Yeah, for you maybe, but you also have met someone
Totally
that you
different,
could
yeah.
have fallen in love with in 2 weeks. So again, we can't judge how other
Certainly,
people
yeah.
operate in their
Yep.
own relationships, but you and your partner need to get on the same page, and you can't be afraid to do that. If you find out earlier on that she is just not that into you or as much as you are into her,
Yep.
then you move on. Then you find out now as opposed to a year from now. If you're not on the same page, you guys, it's better to be rejected earlier on than to find out you're not on the same page later.
So one thing Darian asks is, how should I proceed so I don't lose her? I think maybe having a conversation, like, I feel like I might have freaked you out with saying this stuff. I just want, like, it might have been,
empathy.
like it might have been too much. We all move at different paces. I did just want you to know I am really excited about this. I am looking for something long-term, if that is the case. Like, where are you at? And then turn it to her so it's more of a dialogue opposed to him just
Railing
telling
on
her
it, yeah.
all the time how he feels.
Fear should never drive your decisions. The fear of losing someone, the fear of rejection shouldn't be the main driver of why you do something. So instead of, I fear losing her, how do I proceed without losing her? How do I proceed in order to make sure I get the best out of this dating experience? That's a different way of looking at it. You got to frame it that way. It's not about, you can't always be afraid of losing someone or fear of rejection. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's reality. You can't control how someone else feels. But what you can control is your own life and your own feelings.
Yeah, and I think that is a good wrap up and tie into this also. That rejection could be by saying too much, or it could also be
little.
doing, too little.
Too little. Cool. All right. Anything else, guys?
No, that's it.
Thank you for getting real with us. We
Thanks.
appreciate it. And
Thanks
sorry if we
for-
put you in the hot seat.
Thanks for not running away halfway
it's a tough
into
one.
this. But
I hope it helped.
It's good to face these
Mhm.
conversations and
And
have them with someone
uncomfortable
else.
spaces.
Uncomfortable spaces, because that's what grows us. Grows us. That doesn't even sound good, but that's what helps us. That's what helps us grow as people. And I think we should constantly be growing every day, every second. So good job, Bobby.
Thanks.
You were very brave. And now nobody else wants to come on the show. I'm just kidding. You were very, very brave. And I really appreciate that. And thank you for being honest and, yeah, like Julie said, very real. Okay, let's wrap this up. Hey, we want to hear from you. Don't be scared. We're not, we want to work through these issues together. Because I think at the end of the day, with Dateable, why Julie and I want to start with this podcast is to let everyone know that we're all going through the same things. You're not alone in your thoughts. Don't be a loner. You can be independent, but don't be a loner.
Or at least with your thoughts.
At least with your thoughts. At least with your thoughts. We want to open up the conversation, and that's why we started this podcast. So we want to hear from you. If you have some issues or topics you'd like to discuss, let us know. We'd love to have you as a guest on our show. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Stay dateable.
Your action item for this week is to identify 5 situations that made you feel strong feelings. And then from there, from your feelings, identify your needs. So for example, I felt insecure because I need security. I felt disappointed because I need reassurance. Make a list of those needs, and those are your needs for you. It's just a way of getting to know what you want. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. If you didn't know already, we have a revamped website with articles, videos, and content all about modern dating. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We've had some great feedback about how actionable these episodes are, so check them out on our website or iTunes Music. Also, visit the site today to see the latest about coaching.
where we connect you with Dateable approved experts to help with everything from dating profile reviews, coaching, and even gathering real feedback about your dating style in a personalized and affordable way. To connect with us, visit dateablepodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all under Dateable Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and auto-download the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode.